Okay, so right now we're going to be spending maybe the next 20 minutes or so with our distinguished speakers this afternoon. We have quite a few questions that come through. I know some of you have already addressed them, but let me get started by one question to Alex. You talk about the challenges, but what would you do if an employee just doesn't want to change, and they've done it longer, they think they know better, and they just don't think you have what it takes. So what do you do when you run into that kind of situation?
So a lot of times there's more to it usually, right? There's more to it when an employee takes that stance. And in the way I've had success for me has been the one-on-one. Let's sit down, let's talk about what's at issue, right? And I think Mark has been part of this group, and his best analogy he gave was a workplace is like a downward escalator, right? If you stand still, you're losing ground, right? So there has to be that discussion with the employee of if you're not willing to change, then at some point you become a liability rather than an asset to the company, right? And you have to acknowledge, if they're a good employee, you have to acknowledge that they've contributed to the work group, but they have to adapt to the either new working conditions, new processes, new procedures to keep succeeding.
Thanks, Alex.
I would like to comment on this, Chris. Just help David out with this dialogue, right?
Yes.
During the course of transformation, which the industry, every business is under pressure for transformation and doing things better, faster, and less expensive, and achieve a higher profit. This is the modern day enterprise business. Every company is dealing with this kind of challenges. I want to share a very specific AT&T story. It's a very famous one. That when our former chairman and CEO, Randall Stevens, that give that as his personal example. His own brother, his older brother, who recommended Randall to work for AT&T, is still a technician when Randall was the CEO and chairman for the last 10 years and more than 12 years. And he was working AT&T, and he refused to change. When the company offers saying, hey, you get a chance to skill pivot, we will pay the money to learn. He said, I am fine. I am going to retire, but I will do the job I know how to do the best. And by the way, just so you guys know, right, AT&T does have ethnic guidelines. You do not work in the direct chain of your own relatives. AT&T board has to issue every year a review and the permission for the Kevin Stevens to continue to work in the company, because his brother, younger brother, is the highest in the command chain. But Randall's response was okay, because we still have a lot of legacy services requires royal, technicians and engineers to maintain AT&T services to our customers. And he's on the way out. He has a very definite plan for retirement. They allow them to do that. In my organization of thousands of the people, you always run into people saying, this is above my pay grade. I don't want to do this. To Alex's point, you really have to go one by one. Someone may have a reason they are not happy for today's environment. Okay, you needed to dig deeper into it. Some people are honestly, they don't want to change, because if you dig into deeper, they are only 3 months away from their retirement plan. They never told you. So you really have to treat that situation very differently. But with the interesting data Alex has shared is that because the industry is moving into the Z generations, and the workplace is changing drastically, all leader has to change the way we look at the composition of our employee base, because you cannot assume you know how to deal with a baby boomer, and it's the same way you can deal with the Z generation. It's very different, very, very different. And the leadership and how you manage that population needed to adopt. And this is the part where I enjoy. I learn from my Z generation children. Okay, and this is the part as a leader you always have to learn, because you cannot assume I am the wisest person on the block. If you do, you stifle the innovation. You stifle the growth of the organization in the company. So, for whatever it's worth.
Thanks, David. I've got a question for Bing. In David's talk, he talked about just walking down the hallway and keep smiling, kind of projecting a positive energy, to his team, to his colleagues. Bing, how do you think we can continue to do those very important, albeit softer gestures, while we are going to be working more and more virtually and more working from home, starting with what was a necessity with COVID, but that seems to be the trend going forward, even beyond, when COVID is not an issue anymore.
Chris, thanks for the question. I guess I'm the lucky one. I retired in last day of the last year. So I can smile when I want, and I can not doing that when I don't want to. But I think it's really two things. One is corporate culture, including the role you're playing and also the personality you are. For example, for the team I'm dealing with, several thousand sales guy, and also a bunch of PhDs. They are, most of them are self-motivator and very proactive. Though some still we try to encourage them whenever they are doing something good. So smiling, I don't smile as much as I do outside of work, but with those guys, they're tough because I have a bunch of cowboys in my team. But the encouragement, there are many ways to encourage the people. Smiling is one way. And I think that works really well for some people, some culture, some personality. But encouragement, I think that David mentioned that it means encouragement, motivation in multiple ways. Nice gesture is one way. Set a clear goal, incentivize right behavior, and reward a good deed. All those playing a critical roles. And by the way, just coming from East Asia, we culturally tend to smile more in a business environment. And just so you know, I also made some confusions when I smile at the people. It's simply because of when we talk about something, I feel, oops, that's a mistake, or somebody made a mistake. I feel like, hey, that's interesting. I smiled and people got confused. So quickly after I moved here, like 7 years ago, I became more conscious about what are the ways to motivate the people. So smiling is one, but equally important are some other critical aspects I just mentioned. I guess other guys have different views and also equally valuable perspectives.
Yeah, Alex and David, any additional thoughts on this?
I think that under the pandemic environment, it is more important you use every instrument available at the leadership level, such as normal technical ladder, progression, promotion, and you promote the right people consistently. With this, when you promote people, people will also say, yeah, they are really the best with deserving people, not the people not deserving. You use every dollar company give to you for reward and recognition. You help the employee to celebrate. You to acknowledge openly, even as small as that they receive a high five from customer and receive a note from your executive team saying, hey, thank you for doing that, for pleasing the customer, to delight the customer. Small things like that will all make a huge difference, but it's not like a single thing that can do it, right?
Yep. I've got another question for Bing. In your presentation, you touched on assertive leadership. Can you maybe expand on that for us a little bit?
Okay. I think, well, thank you for the question. Actually, this is one area I really want to share with this group of people badly. The reason for saying that is in my career, well, all the way up to today, even though it's different roles, I have been working with, by the way, at the TI, I had one of the most diversified group of leadership team, group of APs, group of like senior counselors, those type of roles. And there are some also from Asia, East Asia. And I have many people from East Asia too. Through the interactions, I found one thing that's very interesting is when it comes to communication, we East Asia people, many of us tend to be very thoughtful, very think a lot of things and answer or introduce in a roundabout way. I'll give you one example. Alex, if you don't mind, I will pick your as example. What is your answer question? He talked about the people refuse to change, how he answers. Liability or asset? Okay, that's very direct. For typical East Asian people like me or even David, how we will be answered. We'll give a roundabout answer and you will get it. So in communication, especially in US environment, this causes a lot of misunderstanding and underestimate of the capability of the people who are trying to make a point. I'll give you one example, which I feel really sorry about the person. I shared with you, one of the person approached me to prepare him for his important, could be one of the most important presentation in his whole career, because he's facing like a 9 panelists for interviewing for a director job. Okay. And when I was asking, hey, while we're doing this, have you talked to your current boss? His answer, not yet. I was like, why not? Because you are running the risk of pissing him off. And if you didn't get that job, you will be in a very funny situation. And he goes like, I've been thinking about for like 7 days, and I still not so sure what's the best way. And that's just one example. Another example would be there's another person who was approaching to me. Like there's one tiny thing his boss asking me to do, he doesn't want to do. And he hesitated for 4 or 5 days. He didn't want to do. And they're not trying to tell his boss. And I would just, hey, tell boss, I don't want to do this, and tell him why. And he went to do it. Guess what? It's very simple. 2 minutes, problem solved. And I've seen this type of cases over and over and over, overthinking. And so back to what you were saying, the question, the one of the audience mentioned, when it comes to communication, when it comes to the leadership, when you are even on the simple questions, you drag your feet for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 days. If your boss noticed this for 1 second, third time, guess what? Assertive, certainly something we'll need to improve assertiveness. So long story short, I have noticed this from my experience with many people with my similar background, even me myself sometimes falling into this trap. So be assertive, be decisive. Even if you made a mistake, guess what? You will learn, maybe in a hard way, but you are learning. So I will stop here, Chris.
Thanks, Wayne.
I wanted
sometimes, go ahead, Alex.
So one of the, and I'm a little too direct, I've been told, but one of the best compliments I've gotten though has been, thank you for that. A lot of people say, thank you for that. Thank you for the directness. A lot of people have been beating around the bush, not telling me what I need to improve on. And thank you for letting me know what it is. So it's been a lot more thank you than people getting mad on being direct.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah, I would like to add a couple of things coming in from the same East Asian or Chinese immigrants background. I know many people ask that question actually have origin, because both language-wise, and culture-wise, they think how to handle this is very, very difficult. I think the first thing I want to share with you is that I enjoy the American culture, okay? The openness. And if you really dive into the mainstream of the American culture is not about courtesy to be polite, okay? The very first thing I learned when I've come to United States is that I went to my uncle's house, okay? They passed the plates around and they asked me, would you like to have some food? I say, okay, thank you. I will get it. And then my uncle immediately coached me. He said, by the way, David, in China, it's customary for you to say no for 3 times, then you pick up, okay? In United States, when I pass the plate to you and you said no, I'm passing on. You're not getting anything, okay? That speaks for all, right? The first thing. The second thing is that I strongly, strongly encourage anyone doing business, learn your English, practice your English. Speak English in your daily life. Even when you're trying to, in your brain, think about phrasing how you would address a question, practice. This is how I learned. When I landed in the United States, unfortunately, my mother received such great English teaching. I have so many people around in Shanghai to teach me English. I never wanted to learn. I never wanted to learn English because I view there is no use for it. So practically speaking, I landed in this country, studying college at the same time, began to pick up English. And why I pay attention to it. I think this is important for my fundamental survival. Third is on the aggressive assertiveness itself. The definition of assertive is not speaking more. It's not every chance that in a meeting you have to have your voice to be heard. It is what you carry, the weighty expertise, and you very directly address the questions from executive around the table, around the people, that you bring very unique value to the conversation. That is most important. I hope that helps also.
Yes.
All right.
Thank you,
Thanks.
David. Thank you, Alex, and thank you, Bing. You guys are just fabulous. Your experience, your insights. I am certain that the audience, and I know myself, have benefited from listening to you this afternoon. I wish we have a lot more time. Stick around for dinner and spend the rest of the afternoon talking, but I need to keep the time. So I'm going to turn it over to our organizers, our event chair. Let me just quickly share my screen. So first of all,
Chris.
Yes.
Do you mind? There's one question to anybody. I want to spend 2 minutes.
I'm sorry, Beng, you were breaking up.
Chinese engineering community. Okay. Can you hear me okay?
Yep.
Okay. So there's one question there to any of us. I just want to make a quick comment. The question was, how do you handle conflicts in a workplace? Because this is another thing, puzzles many people, especially the people from this group of audience. I have noticed. So if you don't mind, 2 minutes. Whoever asked this question, very good question, and I have noticed in our culture, this can actually puzzle many people or paralyze many people. To put it in a simple way is when there's a conflict, of course, I hope they're ethical, okay? A legit conflict. And if that is passed, then think about if you are the owner of the company, what may be the decision should be made. If it's good for the company, then tackle it, trying to push forward your idea or influence the people to accept your idea. If all I'm saying is elevate yourself one step higher or one level higher to see if there's a conflict, which option will be doing a better job for the overall team, for the overall company, for for the customer. And then there are a lot of soft skills related to this and how to make it smooth. But one thing for sure is don't be afraid of conflicts, because we have different people, different ideas. Sometimes conflicts will make our team even stronger, even more effective. I would just stop here.
Yep. Thanks, Bing. Very, very useful and valuable insight. So with this, I want to thank our event chair, co-chairs, Yan Ping, Chen, and Brian Taylor. Behind the scenes, they have been working very diligently to deliver to all of us this wonderful event. So Yan Ping and Brian, I'll turn it over to you.